Good morning, everyone. I'm Skelton, an associate here in Kelly Dry's Advertising and Privacy Practice Group. And I'm here to introduce our first summit session today by Gonzalo Mon, breaking into the conversation, legal issues in real-time marketing. But since we're at the Watergate, I'm going to do a little breaking in myself to give you a couple examples of some modern-day real-time marketing scandals. So here's some quick background. In traditional marketing, companies often create a marketing plan well in advance of execution and then execute the campaign according to a fixed schedule, regardless of what's going on in the world. Real-time marketing is more spontaneous. So instead of planning things ahead of time, marketers spend time watching current events, listening to what people are talking about, and then trying to join that conversation. If it's done right, there are a lot of benefits to this strategy. By breaking into an existing conversation, companies become part of something that consumers currently care about. It makes the brand seem relevant and can spark new conversation about the company and its products. So let's take a look at a couple examples of some successful real-time marketing campaigns. Do you all remember Dressgate? So the internet went crazy, debating whether this dress is black and blue or white and gold. Even Kim Ye and Bieber got involved in the debate, and well, since I'm a believer, I'm going to side with Justin on this one. So while people were debating the dress's color, Tide posted this on Twitter. It was quickly retweeted over 10,000 times, and people started talking about Tide. Or do you remember the scandal about the iPhone 6 Plus bending when people put it in their back pockets? And if this scandal is news to you, I'd suggest quickly taking your iPhone 6 out of your back pocket and placing it on the table. No one here is judging you. So Kit Kat got into the action and responded with this tweet. Again, it became very popular and people started talking about the candy. But not every real-time marketing campaign is a success. For example, Kenneth Cole tried to inject itself into the conversation about protests in Cairo and posted this tweet, which outraged its followers. Similarly, The Gap tries to use Hurricane Sandy as a marketing opportunity with this tweet. That didn't go well either. But poor timing and bad taste are only a few things you need to worry about. If you aren't careful, your real-time marketing campaign can get you into some real-time legal trouble. So, in the spirit of doing some of my own real-time marketing, I'm going to leave you with this post, since Gonzalo really needs no introduction.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you all once again for taking time out of your schedules to join us today. It's possible that by the end of the day you're going to grow tired of this Watergate scandal imagery, but since I'm first, I trust you're going to find it witty for now. We're going to talk about real-time marketing, and when I was planning this presentation, I spent a little bit of time talking to some companies and some agencies that engage in this to get a sense of what issues they were dealing with and what kept them up at night. And largely what we're going to talk about today is based on that. We're going to focus on 4 common issues that keep reoccurring and hopefully some solutions to those issues. But before we get to the issues themselves, I want to talk about 2 overarching factors that complicate the analysis in this area. And the first is this concept of real time. As Crystal mentioned, there's a conversation that's ongoing and you want to jump into it. So to the extent that you want to have legal review for what you're doing, you have to do it pretty quickly. You can't join the conversation late. The second complicating factor is that for some of the issues we're going to talk about, especially the second 2, there simply aren't very clear answers. For each of these, I can show you examples of companies that did something and didn't get in trouble. I can show you examples of companies that did something and got called out on it. But to the extent that we've seen lawsuits, they've settled. So that puts you in the position of having to make decisions really fast without a lot of good information. But nevertheless, we're going to try to make that a little bit easier for you. The first issue I want to talk about is probably the easiest, and we'll work our way towards the harder ones. It has to do with advertising laws. I assume everyone in this room knows that when you're engaging in real-time marketing or when you're engaging in social media, you're essentially subject to the same laws that you are when you're engaging in traditional media and marketing there. So I know it and you know it, but in my experience, not a lot of marketers appreciate that. And to a certain extent, we can understand that, right? These people are all engaging in social media and doing some real-time tweeting and posting on their own. And they don't always appreciate that a little bit of carelessness in your personal life is probably not going to be a big deal, but when you do it on behalf of the company, the risks can be more significant. So since Crystal mentioned some of our celebrity friends, we'll start Kanye West. Earlier this year, he released his new album, and he said he was going to release it exclusively on a music service called Tidal. I don't know how many of you here are familiar with Tidal. Probably not a lot. It's co-owned by Kanye West and Jay-Z, and if you believe press reports, towards the beginning of the year, the service wasn't doing very well. It just didn't have a lot of subscribers. So when Kanye said it was only going to be available on Tidal, it got a lot of interest. And he tweeted this: "My album will never, never, never be on Apple, and it will never be for sale. You can only get it on Tidal." So for those of you who are counting, that's 4 uses of the word never in 107 characters. Subscribership went up. I think in about a month or so after this, their subscriber base tripled. Fairly impressive. But shortly after that, he released the album on iTunes. And that got a lot of people upset. Some people got so upset that they filed a class action lawsuit over it. They argued that this was an ad and that it was false. And based on this misrepresentation, they signed up and they paid for the service, and that's something that they wouldn't have done otherwise if it weren't for this. So it's early. This case was just filed, so we don't know how it's going to turn out. But I think the lesson is probably clear here. Again, you have to be very careful about what you do on behalf of the business. If you were to do something like this on your own personal time, and I know I've seen, by the way, some of you last night posted that you would never, never, never drink again. And Randy, can we get some of those posts on the screen? No. All right, so that's okay. But nevertheless, if you go out drinking tonight, no one's going to care. You're not going to get in trouble with that. But if you do that on behalf of the business, I think the answer is a little bit different. You've got a different risk level. Fortunately, the solutions here, I think, are fairly straightforward. You should treat real-time marketing the same as you treat other types of marketing. To the extent you want to have a legal review process, you should generally review posts before they go up, or at least have marketers pull from a list of content that's pre-approved. The second issue is closely related to the first. It deals with endorsers. A lot of companies are using endorsers, whether it's celebrities or maybe B-list celebrities that have little followings in their areas, but they're using them to market. And if you've been to this conference before, if you read our blog, or I guess if you're just independently smart, you know that there's been some focus on endorser issues, especially when it comes to endorsers disclosing their connection to companies. But I want to focus on something more fundamental. I want to focus on the fact that what endorsers say has to comply with the laws as well. So if an endorser does something that's problematic, you as a company can get in trouble for that. Kanye was helpful, so we'll learn from Kim now. Kim Kardashian posted about this morning sickness drug. OMG, she writes, this is fantastic, and she talks about how much it helped her. So it's a good post, got a lot of attention, but the FDA didn't like it. The FDA took the position that this was an ad and that it did not comply with drug advertising laws because, amongst other things, it didn't talk about side effects. So we know that the FDA contacted the drug manufacturer, and we don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but shortly after that, Kim posted this on Instagram. And if you look closely, this one does not start with OMG. This one starts with hashtag corrective ad. So I don't care how savvy Kim is when it comes to social media. I bet you she didn't come up with that on her own. This was the FDA's doing. So again, companies can get in trouble for these sorts of things. Now I realize this was the FDA, this was a drug ad. I realize most of you don't sell drugs, at least not in the professional sense of that. But this could have easily been the FTC. It could have easily been a competitor or something else. So you need to have some tight controls over what your endorsers are doing. And sometimes when I have this conversation with clients, they ask about, what happens when these endorsers are talking on their own time? They're not talking about our products. Do we have to worry about that? The answer from a legal perspective is probably not. But from a reputational perspective, you may have some things to worry about. So for example, go back a couple of years, tsunami hit Japan. You've all seen pictures like this. When the world was mourning this, comedian Gilbert Gottfried decided to post some tasteless jokes. I won't even read them to you, but not very funny at all. If you were working with Gilbert Gottfried, you would not have wanted to be associated with him. And one company was. He was the spokesperson for Aflac. Luckily, Aflac was able to pull the plug and terminate the relationship. So again, not a legal issue, but a reputational one. And that leads us to the second idea here as to how you can control these things. So again, the solutions are fairly straightforward. The first is that your endorser should really never be marketing in real time. They should either write posts for you to review before they go up, or you write posts that they review and approve before they go up. But you should never be surprised with what your endorsers are saying about your products. So this should be dealt with in the contract with them. To the extent your contract extends for a reasonable period of time, consider having a morals clause, like what Aflac had. Give it some thought. If it's a short stint, it may not make a difference. But if you're dealing with months or over a year, you want to have the right to pull the plug if they do something that embarrasses you. These things can be hotly debated, and we can certainly talk about ways to structure them. Obviously, you got to make sure the rest of your deal works too. I've seen companies have good morals clauses, where all their payments are stacked towards the front, so you can pull the plug later if you've already paid the money. So give it some thought holistically. That brings us to our third issue, which is where I think we get more to the heart of real-time marketing and things start getting a little bit more complicated. And that's to do with events. Something's going on you want to talk about. One great example of this happened a couple of years ago during the Super Bowl. You may remember the power went out, and Oreo tweeted this: "Power out? No problem. You can still dunk in the dark." From a legal perspective, this poses zero risk. From a marketing perspective, it's brilliant. It's still listed as one of the best examples of real-time marketing, but it's not always this easy. I don't know how many of you have tried to market around the time of the Super Bowl, especially when you weren't a sponsor. If so, you've probably had conversations like this. Do we have sound here, guys?
Yes. The next big thing, YouTube, ideas.
We know that it's got to be big because it's for the Super. We can't say
You can't
Super.
say the name of the game.
You can't say Super.
Yeah.
We actually can't say Super.
No, it's trademarked.
Why can't we say?
We can get sued.
By who?
Everybody, nobody, who knows?
Wait, so can I say Super?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say like? Can I say San Francisco?
Sure.
But I can't say the 40.
Can I say the Baltimore Ravens?
Can we say the San Francisco 50 minus ones?
Can we say the Baltimore Blackbirds? Absolutely. All you want.
Okay.
So then what do we say instead of super?
The big game.
So when we El Plato Supreme, playing a commercial for the big plate featuring the San Francisco 50 minus oneers and the Baltimore Blackbirds. You got it, Paul. You got it. I like hashtags.
Hashtags. Okay, we'll use hashtag.
Like hashtags. So for those of you who have tried to market around the Super Bowl, you've had a conversation a lot like this one. For those of you who haven't, hopefully this still makes sense. Companies that run events get paid a lot of money in sponsorship fees to allow companies to associate themselves with the events. And if you make that association without paying them that lot of money, they're not going to be happy with it. Give you another example. You may recall a couple of years ago during the Sochi Olympics, athlete was running with a torch, and the torch blew out. Russia is windy. But luckily, a guy by the side of the road was able to relight it with what appeared to be a Zippo lighter. And Zippo capitalized on that. They posted this. They like hashtags too. This one was Zippo Saves Olympics. So from a marketing perspective, pretty brilliant, but the Olympic Committee didn't like it. IOC contacted Zippo. We don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but then Zippo quickly stopped using that hashtag and changed to this. Talked about how they're perfect for winter games, wink wink. Nice save, but it shows you that you run the risk of being contacted by the rights holders. It's not just the Super Bowl, it's not just the Olympics, any event, Oscars, Grammys, Emmys, especially if the names are trademarked. But not every post has the same level of risk. Consider this from Redbox, timely Oscars. They asked questions about Chris Rock and what host people liked. Nothing happened with this one. I think this is a lower risk, in part because it's taking place at the time, when everyone else is talking about it, and in part because they didn't really talk about themselves. This was different than Zippo that talked about how Zippo had saved the Olympics. So different risk level, not a lot of clear lines, but as you're looking through this, I would say avoid using event names if you can. So don't use Super Bowl, use the big game, or the big plate if you like that one. Winter Games instead of Olympics. But even that's not foolproof. We've seen instances in which companies have gotten called out for using more generic terms. So it's something to think about, but at least it's a starting point. Then the second one is don't make it about you. Again, Zippo made it about how they saved the Olympics. Redbox was just a conversation about what was going on. A subtle line, but one that I think is important. And that takes us to the fourth issue, which is closely related, that deals with celebrities. Celebrities are doing something, you want to talk about it. We've been talking about the Olympics, so imagine an athlete gets a gold medal for the US, you want to brag about it, congratulate them. Can you congratulate that athlete? The answer is maybe. Some of you may remember this. Michael Jordan was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and Jewel Osco ran this ad. Well, Michael Jordan knows he's great. He doesn't need to be congratulated, so he sued, arguing that they violated his right of publicity because they took his persona for their own marketing purposes. This case settled. I realize this isn't social media, it's not real-time marketing, but it could have been. It could have been this. Katherine Hagel, outside the Dwayne Reed store, this gets posted, and she sues for $6 million. Okay? It's a fairly innocent post of something that really happened. She was really outside the store, they didn't make it up. Nevertheless, she thought that they were trading on her image to sell their products. Again, the case settles, so we don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but hopefully this gives you a sense of the risks that are involved and the dollar amounts that could be at stake. Again, not every post is the same risk level. Some of you may remember at the Grammys a couple of years ago, Pharrell wore this crazy and I'm told quite expensive hat, and Arby's tweeted, "Hey Pharrell, can we have our hat back?" I don't know how many of you who do this would have approved that. It's a bit of a close call, but it went okay. Pharrell wrote back saying, "Hey, you all trying to start a roast beef?" So there was some friendly banter, but this could have easily gone the other way. Go to the next Grammys. Jimmy John's, Iggy's Making Me Hungry. Commentary on her hair and the bun there. Nothing happened with this one. You can ask yourself whether you would have approved it. I don't know that I would have. But again, it just goes to show you there are examples of this out there where companies do it and don't get in trouble. And I'm sure your marketers have a catalog of these that they will present to you. But just know that there are others on the other side of the table where you see these $6 million demands. Some solutions here. This one depends a lot. A lot here depends on your risk tolerance, but this one especially. For some companies, the answer is easy. Don't use celebrities, period. The law is murky enough. Some celebrities are very litigious in this area, and the dollar amounts can be very high, given how much celebrities get paid for these sorts of things. So depending on your company, you may want to stop the analysis right there. If your marketers press, since they're not going to take no for an answer, so the next thing is similar to what we talked about for events. If you are going to use celebrities, don't make it about you. It's a little bit easier to join an ongoing conversation and comment about what's going on. But the moment it's about how the celebrity likes you or visits your business or anything like that, I think the risks automatically go up. Just have a couple minutes, some final thoughts. Despite the name, not all real-time marketing takes place in real time. If you think about it, for real-time marketing, there's a what and there's a when, and sometimes you know one or the other, right? So you think about the Olympics, you can be pretty certain that some American is going to win a gold medal. You just don't know the exact circumstances. So you can plan around, you can plan ahead of that. And I would encourage your marketers to come up with ideas if they want to engage in this space. Come up with different variations for this event or that event or different timing, and pre-clear those with you, so that when the event happens and you need to move a little bit more quickly, you already have a structure in place. And this other one is a little bit harder. I say know the risks. As you can see, the risks are a little bit amorphous. We can tell you where some companies have been getting in trouble and have a sense of what the hot button issues are. But knowing the answers is a little bit difficult in this area. But also for yourselves, I would say, to the extent that you can, you should plan ahead. And with that, I've got 15 seconds left. So I will thank you. And if there's any questions, you can ask during the break or during one of the other sessions. Okay? Thank you.